Yo, good morning guys. Theo here. As usual, I say good morning when it's morning for me, but won't be when you see this. I woke up really early today. It's like a little past 6 a.m. And so I figured why not take a walk in the woods and talk to you guys before I start work. So today I want to talk about panic attacks, the thing that started my transformation, my change, my awakening, so to say. Just a little quickly, it's probably going to be a lengthy video, but on the fasting and cutting stuff, I have switched to a less aggressive routine now. I'm really kind of happy where I'm at now, but since I have some time left to the 2-year transformation officially, I'll still cut a little bit. But I basically eat for 3 days, train for 2 of those days, and fast on the 4th day. That's the average routine I have in mind, but also I think since I announced that, that's exactly what I've done. So this was something I was going to do a live stream about. At first I announced it months ago, then I realized I couldn't do it from the phone without 1,000 subscribers, and that now I'm thinking I won't be doing any live stream until I get those 1,000 subscribers. So let's get me there, alright guys? Okay. So about the panic attacks, it's a little hard to know where to start because there's so much backstory to it that I didn't realize at the time. But let's just say I had spent years, probably since my teens, I would consider myself a depressed person. Like not every single day, like even maybe sometimes a few months where I thought things were going well. But then, because, you know, something went your way and you're having fun, some activities happening, maybe you go abroad or some trip or something, you know. But in the big picture, the anxiety and depression and just feeling of, yeah, that nothing matters, I'm a loser, the world is a coincidence, everything is evil. That was what I came back to all the time. So something about me was that I started getting very upset about the news and stuff, like immigration and feminism and all that. As many of us do, when there's something missing within us, we look, instead of looking within, we look without, you know. It might be the case that there's a lot of dumb stuff about the immigration and feminism stuff, but that wasn't the reason I felt bad. But so that was what I found. Like, yeah, and so I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to become a journalist and change things because I thought that the newspapers seem to all be in on this dumb stuff and there needs to be more people that aren't. So I started studying to be a journalist, but what ended up happening is I just got so depressed from that because it seemed like the system was already rotten from the inside, you know. Like in the school, there's so many things they teach that is obviously extreme left-wing ideology that they just pretend is like not political, you know. Oh no, equality, that doesn't have anything to do with right and left, you know. So I noticed that people like feminist girls, basically, they got very rewarded for just doing their activism thing as their school stuff, you know. And I could absolutely not do what I cared a lot about without being extremely questioned and maybe not even allowed to do some stuff. And so I started feeling, this was a 3-year education, I started feeling after almost 3 years, I guess 2 years, that have I been wasting time? This is not for me. I can't possibly work within the mainstream media. That would be horrible. I would have, just to get jobs, I would have to pretend so much to be someone I'm not. And this was really, I think, the big thing. There were many things building up to the panic attacks, but this was a big thing. So I had taken a temporary customer service job as a summer's job. You know, had nothing to do with journalism, just rental cars, making reservations and handling other problems that might arise afterwards. And I liked this job. I didn't mind talking to people on the phone, even though people weren't too angry a lot. If that happened, you know, I never took it personally. So the job had nothing to do with the panic attacks. But so working there, I decided to take a study break and think about how will I do about this journalism stuff. Yeah, and so I kept working there after the summer. You know, things were all right, I guess. You know, I made my money, paid my bills, but then all of a sudden, a day, you know, a panic attack like that, it's not something you can be prepared for, really, but it still didn't come as a surprise. I couldn't really be surprised that it happened, but so it was like this. I was sitting in my desk in front of my computer as usual, and I just remember feeling like, and starting to look like, what's going on here? Like, everything was so intense all of a sudden, and I just hear everything, every sound, you know, papers scratching against each other, someone using a scissor, whatever, and everything everyone says, and just like, it's like knives flying in the air, and start looking at my hand, and I had this like natural little tremor in my hand that I always had, but it was like, I was just shaking really, and you know, it's so scary because it's always already I felt like terrified kind of physically. Like my body was terrified in that way, but it's so terrifying because I don't understand why this is happening. Why is this happening? It's just a normal day at work. Nothing special happened at work, but all of a sudden I feel just absolutely. It's so hard to describe. Like, basically, the closest thing I can describe it to is as if you were drugged with some really strong psychedelic drug, only, and it's a bad trip, you know, it's a horrible trip. The only thing is you weren't actually drugged with anything. You're feeling this way anyway. So I'm sitting there, and like the phone is calling, and I'm unplugging myself from the system. Like, I can't talk to, like, what I'm gonna do? I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here. But how will I do it? Like, how will I explain myself? I can barely talk. How what are you gonna think? You know, I'm so scared also about this. So finally, I gather courage, go to my team leader at work, and I like barely managed to get out. Like, I think I have a panic attack. And she, very nice woman, she saw right away that something was wrong. She just told me to go home. And so I go out, and it's really cold outside. It was in the winter, snow everywhere, and it was really nice on my face with the cold. But I remember something was so off. I felt so off. I felt like my body and mind was disconnected. Like, I kept looking at my hand every now and then, and it felt like it wasn't my hand. It felt like someone else's hand entered my field of vision. So I was gonna take a bus, but I realized no, there's no way I can be in that tight space with so many people. And I have no history of claustrophobia, by the way. So I decided to walk to the subway instead. When I get there, I realized the subway is not better. So I ended up walking home for like almost 2 hours, 1.5 hours or something. I come home, it's still going. I'm looking at my hand and remember like almost crying, like standing there. Like, basically, I maybe no tears coming down, but what is this? In that way, you know. And I start Googling feelings, like feelings of unrealness, because that was what I felt like. It's not real. Like, what's going on? So confused and so terrifying. And so Google this. Nothing I find is very comforting. When I search about panic attacks, you know, there's the thing that really doesn't help much when it's happening. That when you read that, it might feel terrifying, but it's not dangerous, you know. That really helps me, like right now when I feel like I want to kill myself to get it over with, you know. But so finally I remember trying to distract myself. Watching Seinfeld was what I did. You know, just something I've always, when not feeling too good, I've always liked watching something that can just, you know, take my attention, but without me having to digest it so much. Just receive a simple plot like that. And I just remember when it got like just a few percent better, but still I didn't really feel good, but I felt so grateful, like, oof, the worst part is over. But I realized right away that this was not a one-time thing, like, yeah, tomorrow everything is just gonna be like normal and I go back to work. I was in shock from this, and I stayed home from work the next day. So what I did as fast as I could was I managed to get, what's the word? You know, sick. I wrote myself sick, you know, so I can get some money from the state, but I just did it on half-time, because I realized that if I just sit at home right now and don't go out, this will never get better. But I didn't feel better at all. I felt like I was like in sort of a panic state all the time. And so I started going to work for these half days, And sometimes I had to leave early still. It just happened. It just bloomed out again. And so, to make a long story short here, because now I think you know the details, like I kept doing this a lot in my life, confronting the situations that gave me panic. Sometimes, you know, I got too overwhelmed by it all and I had to stay home for a day from work still. But I kept doing this, confronting the panic in other situations, social situations. I went to Moscow with my choir and went on stage, was absolutely terrified. But what happened when I did confront all these panic attacks, what started happening was I stopped getting the like full-blown attack, because it was kind of a, even though I was kind of always in a certain state, like very worried, it was like kind of a switch where I knew like, okay, now a panic attack is brewing. And so that stopped happening. I still felt like really worried and just unsafe, and like I was stressed all the time, but just the full-blown panic attacks stopped happening. But realizing this, that okay, it actually finally, after like 2 months of this, like basically daily panic attacks, that all of them made me feel like I wanted to kill myself to just stop experiencing it. So realizing like, okay, I'm not feeling good, but it actually is just a little bit better. I started thinking, what more can I do? What more can I do? Because I knew that this is the time I'm gonna kill myself in a few months, or I'm gonna turn my life around. And so I started questioning myself in a way I never had before. Like, what have I actually been up to for the last few years? Like, I've been studying something just because I think I've been told that you need to educate yourself or something. One should have an education. So I've just been doing that, not really because I feel so passionate about being a journalist. You know, I like expressing myself with a message, but like working for a paper like that, yeah. So and also, what did I do in my free time? Well, I drank beer. I tried to sleep with random women. Um, I was lazy. I was just lying around at home. I didn't really binge eat stuff, but you know, it happened that I just bought some sweets or like chocolate balls, stuff like that. I ate only junk food, pizza, microwave food, because I had so low energy that it wasn't really that I had such cravings for these things, a little bit, but mostly just I was too lazy, so tired all the time. So I didn't want to cook food, so just microwave food or takeout food and bad food. And I didn't exercise at all. Like I did do some walking, because I've always been like a walker. Like if I can walk somewhere, I have the time, why not sometimes, you know. But so I realizing this, I had all my life was basically just pleasure, just dopamine, just looking for kicks to make me feel better all the time. So, you know, it's so hard before you are fit and you've done this journey to realize how much exercise and nutrition can change for you. But, you know, I decided to give it a go. I'll start training and I'll start eating better at least. So basically, I started doing my negative pull-ups. You probably, if you watch the channel, you heard me talk about that. Too weak to do normal pull-ups, but I had a pull-up bar. So I just stood on a chair and like went down slowly like this. This was the only thing I did every other day for 2 weeks. And I just stopped eating all that crap food and started eating, on average, you know, chicken, rice and broccoli, basically. And after just 2 weeks, I did notice a difference within me. Like, I wasn't all good yet, but I noticed that if I felt nervous or stressed or something, there was just like, there was a lid on the pot, you know, it couldn't get too strong. And this, you know, you get more stress resistant from training. But so this is where everything changed. When I noticed that, hey, I can actually affect the way I'm feeling. I kept doing this, and you know, from there, I don't even kind of have to tell you more. This is where I consider myself cured already. I didn't, even before starting the training and nutrition thing, I didn't get the panic attacks, but since then, I describe it like this, you know, when you're healing from spiritual trauma, it's not, it's not something that you won't be like healed. You won't go from, it's like how you won't, when you start training, you know, it's not 2 weeks and then you have a six-pack and you deadlift 200 kilos and stuff right away. But something has changed. You have the habit of exercising. It was kind of the same. Like something had changed. I didn't feel depressed. Everything wasn't miserable anymore. Even though I could in certain situations have unresolved, you know, problems and maybe feel a little bad, you know, if I don't know, if I fought with had an argument with someone or something like that. But so since then, it's like one switch. Even though I could still feel a little bad in some way, it's like one switch that was flipped and couldn't get flipped back. My life now had meaning. I was feeling good. And now I don't really have more space. I have a couple of minutes more here, but I think that's, you know, that's just a little about me for the people that like hearing me just talk and about myself, I guess. But I realized, and that's something I will talk more about in the future, I realized that all of this, I thought I was born this way, you know, to just be that kind of a person that gets so strong emotions and worry so much and so severe anxiety that you just feel like you want to escape out of your own skin. You know, I thought I was unlucky to be born that way. But what I realized is, basically, long story short, because I don't have the time, that was my mother's trauma. She transferred it all to me because that's what her parents did to her. She did that to me. She was so worried I was going to end up being like her. She ended up turning me into her. And this is something I figured out, that it always comes from the parents and especially the mother, the trauma. And no one is doomed to a life of anxiety and depression and just feelings of awful dread all the time. I know this now because I am on the other side. I just feel so great and better every day. You know, this is what I mean. One switch has been flipped, but I still have, you know, it can take many years to unlearn or rewire yourself on some things. And so it's just getting better every day. And this is the journey I am on now. Just coming closer to the truth and God every day. Yes, so I will talk more about the parents thing. Please ask me about it in the comments too. I think it's very interesting. It's something many people have not figured out. And I can now, since I absolutely resolved my trauma with my parents and we are on good terms and everything, you know, don't worry about that. It's not about blaming the parents and being angry at them. It's about forgiving them, actually. But I'll for sure talk about that more. Please tell me in the comments what you think about that, if that's something you want to talk like soon. I will do it, but you know, if many people seem to be interested, I might do it even sooner. So now I absolutely only have seconds left. I hope this was a decent video. Take care, guys, and I'll see you.